All right. So welcome to the third session of the Neurodiversity Fall Discussion Series. This session we're talking about neurodiversity in the workplace, and we've got a great group of experts talking to us today. We have Shawn Smith, Julia Webb, and Jamie Barr with us, and I'm going to let them introduce themselves in a few minutes. Just to quickly reintroduce myself, I'm Connie Sihara. I'm the project manager for the Include program through the Department of Civil and Environmental Engineering. And this program is funded by the National Science Foundation. We're really grateful for their support and super excited to have this discussion going on. Caressa Wakeman is with us again today. She's going to help moderate the chat and queue up questions. So if you're here, you have questions for our guest speakers, please do feel free to put them right in the chat as we're talking. And Caressa will bring those to the speakers as they arise and if they fit into the flow. Otherwise, we'll come back to them later. Our plan today is to discuss kind of two aspects of neurodiversity in the workplace. The first is more centered around pre-job. What do we do before we get the job? How do we navigate that hiring process? And then we'll spend the second half of the conversation kind of more dedicated to now that you are employed, you have your job, how do you navigate those tough conversations with employers and your environment? What are the ways you can deal with challenges and use your strengths in that setting? So I'm going to have our speakers / presenters, panelists, whatever you want to call them, to introduce themselves real quick. So Shawn, do you want to start out?
Sure. My name is Shawn Smith. I'm the founder of Don't. I'm a psychotherapist by trade. I identify as being neurodiverse, and I also specialize in working with neurodiverse individuals and their families.
Awesome. And Julia, you say a couple words?
Yeah, hi, I'm Julia. I am a neurodiversity specialist at a tech startup in California. And basically what that means is we are a neurodiverse culture, and I kind of just help educate and integrate neurodiversity into our company.
Great. And Jamie Barr is with us today as well. And you are muted, and I'm going to just see if I can help unmute you there. Nothing yet. Jamie, let us know when you're able to introduce yourself, and we will come back to that. So Shawn was going to start off the conversation and talk about some of his experiences working with clients during the job search. And like I said, feel free to enter those questions into the chat as we are talking. Go ahead.
Sure. Awesome. Thanks, Connie. So really what I want to talk about is how do we kind of flip things upside down from, going to an interview and feeling like we're kind of powerless and we're kind of letting them decide who they choose. And the idea of working with neurodiverse individuals really is trying to help explore their unique gift and talent and then figure out how is that transfer into the company. And so a big part of being neurodiverse and seeking employment is trying to develop a portfolio. Jobs are not necessarily gotten on who you know. It's what can you produce? What can you bring to that company? So it really changes the perspective of using a kind of a charity-based deficit model of we should hire a person with a disability because it's the right thing to do, which is actually the wrong thing to do, to trying to get this person to understand that when you're applying for a job, how can you show them that you're going to either make them money or save them money? So looking at it from a business perspective of the value that you bring. And so a nice way to do that is to bring a portfolio. If there's something that you do that you're exceptional at, that when you're in the zone, no one else can touch you, and you can bring that body of work to you, then that body of work then sells itself. The interview process would be much shorter because you've already shown and proven what you can do. So I really encourage people to think about what is your unique gift, and then how can you try to find a way to package that by developing a portfolio that then you can bring to employers to physically show them. You've got something tangible you can give to them to show them what you've been able to do which is going to wow them.
I can kind of go off of that as well. We had a recent interview and he came in and he said, I'm on the spectrum. I'm not great at talking all the time about my skill set, but I want to show you this. We're a kind of a hacking company and we drone detections and whatnot. So he came in with a whole presentation video game that he had hacked and then modified. And so while he wasn't able to necessarily verbally tell us about his skill set, he then just showed us, and you could see the passion come out and how much he was so excited about what he had done. And our VP of engineering loved it because he could see the way that his mind processed and went through all of those steps and how he thought about those things differently. And so it was the perfect interview for him. And he's hired now at our company. So yeah.
Something you touched on there, Julia, the word passion. Like if you go to a job interview and you might not get that job, if you're that passionate about what you do, that person is going to try and find something for you somewhere else. They're not, they recognize value when they see it. And if you bring that value, if it's not the right fit for their company, they're still going to try and help you out. That's just the nature of how people are.
Do we want to touch a little bit on resume writing or preparation for the interview, asking questions and that kind of thing, finding the right fit?
Yeah, I think that'd be great. I can approach it from more of a job standpoint. I think Shawn will be much better at helping with preparation of it. So if he wants to start there, maybe.
Sure. So as part of the preparation, really, it's trying to do mock interviews with people, so they're in a similar situation, that they're not kind of feeling as though they're sandbagged or unprepared. So in a lot of different places, you can try to schedule mock interviews with different career development organizations. You may even be able to try and find one online, but it gives you an idea of how you make out in an interview. And I always try to prepare people, like your first interview, you're going to bomb, but it's recognizing that that's actually how you're going to learn best. So rather than get down on yourself and feel defeated, try to take from that how you can improve and build on it, right? You can't get from A to C without going through B. It's not always fun, but it is always necessary. So like anything else, it takes practice to do this stuff. But again, having a solid body of work helps to kind of shorten that process or kind of grease the wheels in that process and making it a bit easier.
So I actually graduated from UConn and I didn't access the Career Center until my last semester of senior year. And I really regret doing that because they were great. They sat down with me and went through my resume. They helped me work through interviews because I do get social anxiety. And so they kind of helped me practice what I needed to practice and showed me the correct ways to go about doing those things. So I don't know what it looks like in the, but I know that they're really, really accessible and they're really willing and wanting to help. I mean, that's the whole reason why they're there. So that's definitely a wonderful resource to use if available. Yeah. There's also community ones, like Shawn was saying, that will help you as well with job interviews and kind of finding the right places for you. There's a couple companies actually that during their application process use a thing called Pymetrics games, and is one that has this where it's actually a set of games that helps assess your skills in a non-biased format, and then it sends it with your application, so it can take out that social aspect that sometimes gives anxiety and stress, and kind of really just assess your skill set as your skill set and any special talents that you might have. And it's a set of 16 different games that look at all different types of things. And so if you look into it, there's companies actually that have found ways to work with the non-typical type of interviewing.
Julia and Shawn, so this background, environmental engineering faculty member, and actually the resource that just now you mentioned, I think is pretty valuable for the undergrad students or grad students with neurodiversity. My main question is that so for students that are seeking for this advice from the specific company, such as for job interview, whether they can find this related the website or the company from on campus, such as if I were a student and I would like to have this the advice or suggestions or even get some mock interviews. Whether I can find the related information from the different company website, or whether I know that this community support you for this neurodiversity. So where can students find this information on from
so I would just honestly Google neurodiverse jobs. I would steer away from ADHD or autism because then that would put you more into the types of programs that specifically search that instead of when you look more for neurodiverse jobs, it comes up with a list of companies that have a neurodiversity initiative. And using the term neurodiversity is really crucial because they take away looking for disability programs. They take away from that. They're looking now, they understand neurodiversity, understand that this is just a different way that brains are wired. And they want that kind of talent in their company. So if you type that in, you come up with a whole list of things. There's, you'll see like Autism at the Work. It's kind of a program name, but a lot of those companies have actually shifted from that into neurodiversity. So.
Thank you. I think this is very valuable. Actually, I can tell from my research group because I have several undergrad students working in my group with my PhD students. And a couple of the undergrad students, well, they already have they already declared such as for the extended exam hours, such as I'm not sure whether it's labeled as or it's in the neurodiversity, but based on what I discussed with them, such as they have ADHD and. Actually after working with the PhD students and definitely our entire group very supportive for this, and I can see the students really build confidence. Okay, and also I really think that for some for the hands-on experiments and also the one-to-one talk discussion with the students, I think this is really helpful for the student to build, for undergrad students to build the confidence, and also they will think, I think different people have different mindset or skill set, and they can find out, so that my strong point is can be appreciated or can be recognized by the grad students, even though previously I never know that. Okay, so I think this is really a good way for students with neurodiversity to build this confidence and also broaden their vision, and they know that they have unrecognized capability. Yeah, so this is based on my view.
Yep.
So we're talking about, recognizing, that neurodiverse people have these strengths that are valuable in the workplace, and some companies are actively recognizing that and recruiting for that. But can you panelists all kind of address the issue of how to work with companies that don't have initiatives such as this, how to navigate the decision about whether or not to disclose your neurodiversity during the hiring process, and how to present these strengths to the potential employer? And I'll open that up to just anyone who wants to jump in on that topic.
I think a really good place to start would be with the interview process, where you actually interview your interviewer, and you ask them questions to kind of get down to their culture is like. So you want to know what their day-to-day looks like. How do they support their employees? What does conflict management look like? So by asking specific questions, you can kind of get a sense of what is their culture at this company like. Are they going to support me if I decide to disclose my disability, or does it sound like they're very structured, very rigid, and that they want you to stay in, they don't necessarily want development and growth and whatnot. They need you for a specific job, and then that's it. You need to get down to the root of the culture in the company. And I think that's where then you can make an educated decision for yourself. It's all personal if you want to disclose or not.
Speaking from my own experience, I was diagnosed when I was 30. Jobs. I have self-disclosed, and I can tell you that I've never gotten a job that I've self-disclosed for. But I also, again, to flip it around, to put it on, the onus on the individual. When you rock what you do, when you are exceptional at what you do, you don't have to go fishing for jobs. Jobs will find you, right? So again, really try to focus on what it is you do and find a company that you can either save money or make money. And I mean, I joke that I've done something no other company has been able to do since 2012, which is keep me employed for longer than 18 consecutive months at a time. So, you can spend a long time waiting for an opportunity, or you can recognize the gift in yourself and create an opportunity.
Hi, everyone. Sorry for my connection issues. I think they're resolved. So I can comment on this from the perspective. So I'm Jamie Barr. I'm a partner at Langan Engineering, a large national global engineering firm. I run the environmental group, and I also am chair of the recruiting committee for the company. And from our perspective, I really like what Julia had said about it starts in the interview process, and it starts in the interview prep process, really in identifying what the strengths and abilities are and how they fit in with the position that you're looking for, right? Or almost seeking it just from our perspective anyway. We obviously, I don't know that I've ever had anybody disclose anything that personal in an interview before. But what we're trying to do in the business community, and certainly in the engineering field at Langan, is become more aware and more educated about this. So we work in highly technical, like the tech companies, Julia's engineering tech company. There are certain skill sets that work really well for various departments and whatnot, and we're trying to become more educated in how the whole thought, or I guess this whole idea of neurodiversity, how it fits in and how we can really embrace it. So but I think from the perspective of the interview process is really where that begins, and where we can start to have dialogue around specific gifts and where they fit within positions at the companies.
So I actually have a question. I think it's really great, Shawn, that you have that entrepreneurial mindset, but what about students who don't, and don't feel like they can just go and start their own company? Do you have any suggestions there?
Sure. It comes down to also determining, is this a hobby or is it a gift? Is it something that will potentially lead to employment, or is it something that maybe they do on the side? And that's okay too, right? The thing that you may be excellent at may not be the career that you want to pursue. So then it's the work-life balance of trying to find a happy medium of what that looks like for you. And it's different for everybody. For me, the dream is to try and incorporate it all into one thing that you can make money, doing your passion. But I think that there is likely a way to tie it into a larger corporate structure, but it takes getting into an interview type of situation to be able to show what you can do, that maybe there isn't a job description for. Maybe there's a position that, what you do is so specialized that they hadn't even thought of before. So I think it takes having those conversations. And again, if not in that company, if somebody really sees the value in what you do or what you have to offer, I think they will then by nature share that with somebody else, and they'll want to see you succeed.
Thank you. I also kind of had another question. We talk a lot about really identifying your strengths and showing what you're good at and bringing a portfolio. But what if students don't really know what they're good at? Do you have any suggestions to kind of figure that out? I know we have like the neurodiversity checklist and some other things, but what if students really don't know? Like they feel like they're probably not good at anything and don't have anything to offer, although that may not be true.
Sure. I think a big part of that comes with confidence and experience. And you know, for a long time, I was afraid to fail. You know, as men, we were told, you know, boys don't cry. You know, showing a weakness was perceived as a sign of vulnerability. And I think now, as I have matured, I know the more I fail, the quicker I'm going to learn. I'm not going to stew in the failure piece. So I think the part of it takes maturity. I think part of it takes confidence. And doing that, you have to put yourself out there in order to try these things, which isn't always easy, right? So I think it's looking at where you are, where you want to be, and trying to create a kind of a, you can create a timeline or a trajectory, but in my experience, it's more like a Plinko board. You know, where you drop is not where you, not necessarily where you're going to end up, right? So I think the idea is that you keep trying and you know, try to maintain a level of confidence in what it is you do.
Awesome. Thank you.
I'd also say off of that is if you don't feel like you have a special like talent or really focused area to go into, getting a job that when you talk to them has opportunity for growth and movement, so that when you do try different things out in the position that you're in, you can then find like, oh, I really love doing this, or I'm really good at doing this, and then having a company that helps you go towards that path and that route. So a lot of times we don't have enough experience to know what we love. Some people are lucky and they know their passions by now. Some people have so many passions they can't have a career in all of them, you know. So getting a job that allows you that movement and that growth in different areas and the different experiences would also be crucial to helping you figure out what you do love and what you're really good at as well. And hopefully they are the same.
Awesome. Thank you, Julia.
If I could just add to that, you know, I was diagnosed at 30 and that's where I started stumbling into mine. I'm 44 now and I'm still discovering them. So I don't want people to think that it's one thing and then it's necessarily linear. You can be gifted in different aspects or different things. Yeah, it's pretty fascinating. But I really try to tell people, don't get discouraged. You got to go out there. You got to try things. You've got to mess it up to figure out how you can do it better, and some things will eventually click. But if we're kind of stuck in this, you know, paralysis of trying to think and dissect everything too much, then we're kind of waiting for something to happen. You know, and if we're not hustling to make things happen, then no one else is going to do that for us. So it really does take initiative from the person to try and get themselves out there.
I just wanted to add a little bit to what Julia said too about finding the companies that offer flexibility, right? And because when you do come out of college, you don't really know 100% of where you're going to end up, and if you do, great, good for you. But most of us didn't, and I think I can speak to how Langan operates. We have many disciplines of engineering and environmental sciences within our company, and human resources and IT, and we have people bounce around all the time, and it's actually part of the interview process that we say we understand you may want to focus in an area, but there's flexibility not only in the type of work, but like for instance, you know, there's a portion of my business that requires a highly technical component and a highly social component, where I have to be in front of public boards and cameras and describing the information that I may be, you know, working through, the solutions that we may be working through. That doesn't fit for everybody, and people have identified that in our company many times, and then, you know, shifted over to, you know, maybe the more remedial engineering focused, the hardcore chemistry component, the math component, and we encourage that, because anybody who is doing well in their career, we don't want them to leave. We don't want them to go to a competitor. We would much rather have them, you know, transfer to San Francisco to join the environmental remediation group or you know, geographical information. So whatever it might be, finding companies with that flexibility, neurodiverse or not, is incredibly important.
Cool. Thank you.
I wanted to ask one more question related to this. I feel like some people might be unsure of what we mean when we're talking about some of these strengths related to neurodiversity, without overly generalizing and pigeonholing people, can anyone provide some examples of someone who is neurodiverse that you've worked with or that you know of who had a very unique skill set that they used in the job setting and how it was an asset for the company?
I have a great example. We're a startup, and so we were up to 8 layoffs, but we got to about a company size of 80, and we're a tech company. Our second employee, he is a hacker, and that's just how his mind works. He's on the spectrum. He loves hacking, but his interview was coming in and hacking a drone that the other person hadn't been able to hack for months. And he brought in consultants and other people to try and help him and couldn't do it. And this one engineer came in and he hacked the drone in just like 2 hours, I think it was. And he's like, all right, well, I'll see you tomorrow. And our CEO was like, oh, okay, great. I'll see you then. And that is his thing. And that's what he does. His saying is, I hack everything. And he does. And we need him to do that because we're a library-based system and we need these drones. That this engineer is the only one whose brain really works in that sense. And this whole company basically now has been built off of him and his brain, and it's amazing.
Yeah, actually, Julie, can I follow this? Actually, right now I just Googled this neurodiversity jobs. That just now the Connie post on the chat board, and then right now I'm on the website. They said neurodiversity actually is a competitive advantages. Sometimes, I mean, the people with the neurodiversity might be very good at the data processing and computing or the AI. And they use one of the example of a young employee with a neurodiversity, but in the very beginning, perhaps he's somehow isolated, but then later on, when he mingled or he felt accommodated by this company culture, and then people find out the value that his capability of doing the data, and so that right now he's being great. So I think that's perhaps definitely. I think, like Jamie said, that perhaps the community should be supportive for this, and also for the young employee with the neurodiversity feel that the value is recognized, appreciated. So I think they can easily bring out their advantages.
Yeah, and that understanding comes from education. A really big example I use a lot of times when I onboard is, when you're onboarding, someone's sitting there and they're either like in their chair or they're tapping their foot, and I'd say, I want you to know right now, like you're technically stimming, you're tapping your foot or you're rocking right now, and just because you're doing it in a more social acceptable way, because it's a little less, what you see a lot of times, and I am specialized in autism, so that's why I keep bringing it up. But a lot of times in autistic individuals, you'll see them doing maybe a little bit heavier of stimming, but it doesn't mean that they're the only ones who do it. You're literally doing it right now, and I do it too, and everything like that. So kind of bringing that education of, oh, okay, so I understand, I guess it kind of helps calm me down a little bit, and that's why they do it too. So it's just that education, and then once you get past those things that are just really stigmatized, then you get to be like, wow, their brains are amazing and they can really help in this area, or they're really, really great employees and dedicated, and so on and so forth.
I also wanted to bring up a question, because so many of these hiring initiatives and companies that have neurodiversity related programs are related to autism. I wondered if anyone wanted to talk about other forms of neurodiversity that have kind of different strengths that are generally associated with them, like ADHD, and what are the unique gifts that often accompany that.
With ADHD, it's really about trying to understand the person's thought process, because our minds constantly cycle and race. So really trying to get people to roll with it and instead of trying to suppress that. But one of the challenges is that, we live in a society that doesn't always accept that, right? So it's trying to find your own community within. But strengths with ADHD is, we can people may call us procrastinators, but we often rock deadlines. We do our best work under pressure. I'm just trying to, some of the other things that we talked about, from the strategy perspective, I guess if we're talking, are we talking specifically gifts, Connie?
I mean, that's what I said, but feel free to go with anything that that occurs to you.
Well, gifts, I mean, it varies in a lot of different ways. I mean, from my experience, there's a lot of artists in a lot of different mediums. Also engineers, all types of different engineers, inventors. So really it's kind of a creative mind, and being in a place where you're able to be yourself and all those things without having the negative voices around you telling you that there are things that you can't do, which for neurodiverse people, I mean, a large part of neurodiverse kids' childhood consists of, the people closest to them telling them things that they can't do, right? So to try and get out of that mindset and be around like-minded people who will help prop you up and celebrate those unique gifts is really, really important. But I would say, you can think of a lot of different industries, and people have gifts in those particular industries, but they're very unique in and of themselves.
I don't know if this is along the lines of what the questioning is, but Shawn, you and I have known each other for a really long time, and we've talked quite a bit about this, and I've tried to implement aspects of what I've learned from you in the workplace, and obviously in a workplace, it's not advertised that I have this condition, or I'm neurodiverse this way or that way, but there are certain tendencies, right? And there are certain gifts that are somewhat common, and whether it's related to neurodiversity or not, one of the things that you and I have been talking about was the idea that focusing on a single task for a extended period of time may not be the best approach sometimes, and then you have to have another task to focus on, and another one, then come back, right? And so I've noticed we've actually tried to implement that just in general in a couple of areas where it's really benefited in efficiencies, right? There's three things that need to get done, and someone is interested in those but needs to cycle through it, and then start back over versus, okay, you've got a 2-hour deadline here, you got to get this thing done immediately. No, understanding that maybe that's not the perfect way to do it for everybody, although it could be for me, it's not for everybody. And I feel like this is very new. We have a diversity and inclusion program at Langan. We do not have a neurodiversity program, but we are now talking about it as I get more engaged into this, and seeing that there are very clear benefits to everybody in it, but you've got to be aware of it. And I think it kind of starts there in the business side of things. And Julia, you guys are way ahead. So I just feel like, in terms of an example of how it's been implemented, that's one of the things that we've implemented. Not even, it was a little bit deliberate, but not really. It wasn't focused on somebody, a single person. It was, hey, you could do it this way. Why don't you try this? And that has worked.
So we have, sorry to interrupt. We have a question from the chat. Emma is asking if there are any fields or tasks that people can't do. Like people might say, oh, you can't do that. What exactly do you mean, Emma? If you wouldn't mind unmuting yourself.
I guess I just mean, I don't know, for me, I always have a little bit of trouble believing in what people would say, oh, you can do whatever, you put your mind to whatever you want to do. And I guess I'm just wondering if you guys find you should steer clear of this because it's a bit tricky, or there's a little bit too much stigma in that kind of way, if that makes sense.
I think it depends on where the person's at. I think with neurodiversity, it's for me, it was kind of a hump that I got over, where it was the confidence piece of I stopped listening to the people who didn't have a hand in where I was going and focus more on myself, right? Because if you think about the psychology about thinking and our thoughts, right? We put so much time and energy and stock into what other people say, right? And if we're so busy and our minds are consumed with what they're thinking about, it prevents us from moving forward. So as long as you make it about somebody else, it can never be about you. So I really do try to encourage people to think about, who is around you that does prop you up. And sometimes it takes reevaluating relationships to figure out who those people are. And, we all have people in our lives for whom, they are the thing that brings us down sometimes. We all have that negative person in our life, right? But at some time in our life, we have to ask ourselves, what do we get out of that relationship? And if it's not healthy, then it is going to drag us away from our goals, right? So it really is about positivity, positive self-talk, surrounding yourself with the right people that are going to encourage you to do those things that you want to try and rock and excel at.
Thank you for answering. That's definitely encouraging. So thank you.
You're welcome.
I'm not a panelist, but could I add something if that's okay?
Sure.
So we were in an advisory board meeting, and there was a provost from California who mentioned, I believe it was her, that there are things that that are difficult for you, but you're able to do those at times. But you want to make sure that you find a place where you're able to do more of the things that you're good at the majority of the time and cycle back to the things that maybe are challenging for you less of the time. But if you have a job that's like 99% what's difficult for you, like for me, like it would probably be like she used the example of linear thinking, and I feel like that as well. Like if I had to just sit at my desk for 9 hours and not be able to get up, and change tasks and fidget, like I think that would be awful for me. So trying to find a job where it's maybe a little more balanced, like, oh, I'm really good at this, and this requires, my job requirement is like I have to do this 70% of the time, but I really struggle with writing and reading, but I only have to do that 30% of the time, so it's more manageable. Does that make sense, Emma? I don't know if I articulated it as well.
No, yeah, that was good. Thank you.
You're welcome.
That's so true. Just having that, even just a small bit of your job that really uses what you're good at and like gets those passions going, that you just are enjoying it, you're engaged in what you're doing, and it's not a battle for you. It's just having a small bit of your job even can really get you through those other pieces of your job that are difficult and that take more energy to get through. So yeah, thanks for bringing that up, Carissa.
Oh, you're welcome. And I completely agree because I have ADHD, and my first year of grad school was kind of, I'd probably say 80 to 90% of the time what's hard for me, and probably only 10% of the time what's easy for me. And I didn't excel. But now in my second year, it's probably like 80 to 90% like, oh, this is easy for me. And then the remaining like 10 to 20%, it's hard, but it's easier to get through because I know it's not the majority of my job right now. But we have another question, and it's how can we help students identify if they're neurodiverse, what their strengths are, and how to guide them to the right field of study?
So I'm not sure if our panelists can address this or not. It's definitely a question that we've been working with in the Include program to try and find the resources and the tools that students can use. We do have something that we're lining up for the Department of Civil and Environmental Engineering called the Do It Neurodiversity Profiler. This is a tool that exists also in the form of an app that you can purchase. It's $2.99 in the App Store, but the department is planning on providing this once we get the program in place. And it basically is a screening tool that can give you a profile of your strengths and weaknesses or challenges, and it's not a diagnostic tool. What I would say is beyond just that, you're not allowed, I guess, to really ask students this question. It's more finding ways to encourage students to reflect on their strengths and their challenges, and trying to find ways for them to use their strengths. So even if you don't know for sure, or the student doesn't know for sure if they're neurodiverse, just finding ways to talk to them about who they are, what's important to them, what their passions are, what they feel like they're really good at, and trying to find ways that they can use those strengths. Like we found that students with ADHD really tend to thrive in a research environment where they're actively solving problems, doing hands-on activities, and having flexibility. So, you know, if you notice that someone is struggling in the traditional classroom and like could really use a little more freedom or creativity, try finding ways to, you know, incorporate those creative problem-solving activities, or encourage them to go outside of the classroom and find those research opportunities to kind of get involved in. That's what I would say. And like I said, we do have some of these tools that we're lining up in the department, but outside of a diagnosis or that kind of conversation, it's really just kind of helping them identify their strengths and using those in their studies.
I'll also say on top of that, there is an interdisciplinary study option at UConn. I went that route, and it was the best decision I had made from switching over for majors, because I was able to pick which classes and which types of classes I wanted, and how that would help me get to my overall goal. So I wasn't sitting in all of these classes that were requirements for my major that I and things that I can't necessarily relate to or that I'm not very interested in. I noticed my grades go down significantly. And so by being able to what I love and what I love to do in this interdisciplinary major, I was able to succeed pretty well, where you could see kind of a drastic change from when I was in a traditional major to over to the interdisciplinary major. So if a student's struggling perhaps and having a hard time in the major they're in, and they want to do all these different types of things, it might be a good place to kind of show them. Yeah.
So I wanted to just touch on some of the topics that we haven't talked about yet with once you're in the job, in the workplace. We'd identified a few key challenges or topics, and one of those is how to navigate the conversation with employers, relationships with employers, and dialogues around your work style, around your work environment, flexibility, these kind of things. So maybe Julia, you want to start on that topic, and then we'll move from there?
Yeah. So once you're in the job, it can be nerve-wracking having a manager that you maybe don't know really well. So one thing that I'll just take from our company and what I have our managers and employees do is I have them set up as much one-on-one meetings as they can. So if it's weekly, if it's monthly, just something where it can go past even work and just talk about each other and kind of get to know each other on a personal level. Because once you know someone on a more personal level, you kind of start to understand them, and it's like making a friend. You know, you see someone on the street, you don't know much about them, you just see them from afar, and you kind of make judgments and assessments, but that's just how human brain works. We have to make those judgments and assessments, but it's being able to bring them closer and get to know them and get to understand them and how their brain works. So the better relationship you can build in that way, then the easier these hard conversations are going to be. And then on the employee side of things, what I do when there's a hard conversation that has to happen, and it doesn't necessarily mean it's negative. It could be even asking for a promotion, or it could be asking for a raise or something of that sort, is you need to sit down and take time and write out what you want to say. And that's the biggest thing, is rehearsing and writing out Because on the spot, I just go blank when these things happen. And like, even right now, I wrote these notes out like 5 times before this. Because when I'm there doing it, I just completely forget what I want to say. So it's rehearsing and it's practicing, and then feeling comfortable because of that relationship you have built prior to be able to talk to them, even if it is a little nerve-wracking. And that's one of the biggest things. And I'm a huge advocate for just honesty. Of just, if something is wrong, just be honest about it. Most people will get it, but it's the kind of trying to skirt around things and not say things that make it so difficult to kind of get your point across. Or for even the manager, I have to sit down with the managers and say, you have to be straightforward. You can't, well, it'd be nice if you could do this and this, hoping that maybe they understand that you're not doing well in this area. Like, no, just be straightforward and be honest. Like, you're not performing well in this area, we need you to. And everyone's going to receive that. It's going to be hard at first, but you will receive that better than leaving the conversation being like, oh my gosh, is it because of this? Is it because of this? I have no idea, and letting your mind go into that spiral of, I don't know what's happening. So yeah, just to bring it back around, I would say trying to create a good relationship with your manager, and then rehearsing what you want to say. And yeah, that's it.
Yeah, so here that Julia, I ran among the one page. That's some common example of a common workplace accommodations for the neurodiversity employees, such as the flexible work days or hours to maximize the peak performance, and also the written emails or recorded instructions to ensure they can be referred later, or the backup plans to help eliminate the stress of unscheduled needs or changes. Yeah, so apparently that's I think perhaps for the team members or the managers or some your colleague or fellows, will better organize, right? Or yourself will have to organize things step by step. So in that case, we can know the priority and also prepare employees in advance for drastic schedule changes, so that everyone could prepare. And so I think better for the neurodiversity employees could be well prepared. Yeah, for this. Yeah, so I think there are several examples written on this website. I think I can share the website. It's called the Neurodiversity in the Workplace. So I think they have the different examples. Yeah. From manager level, from your colleague level, from peer level, from the team members.
Yeah, there's a whole bunch of different approaches depending on what kind of conversation you're having or what you're trying to navigate, whether that be stress or anxiety. What I was talking about specifically was definitely like the more manager employee relationship. But yeah, I've been to that website and it has really good resources. I recommend going through it.
And also, there are some specific benefits, especially for the neurodiversity employee could get, or whether you can get some special benefits, or just you declare this and then the people recognize that, I have not read through this benefits things on this website. Yeah, apparently, mainly the interpersonal interactions. So for the employees should not be shy to express themselves, and then build up consider workplace environment factors and make appropriate accommodation for their needs. And teamwork or office behavior training or something.
I think what Julie was saying about the honesty part, to me, that's one of the biggest pieces of having these conversations. I mean, obviously you have to develop some kind of rapport, right? Just as a human, it's much easier to talk to somebody that you know a little bit, right? Being honest with your manager, I think, just before this call, I had an hour-long conversation with the staff, and a very honest conversation about about how they were feeling about performance and comments I may have made on a report regarding some technical items, and it was so much easier to have that. It was difficult in the first couple minutes, but overall we ended that conversation with really great takeaways and a much better understanding of each other and our perspectives. That didn't get into the topic of neurodiversity, but I can see how it would it should make everybody feel a whole lot more at ease in the conversation once you get past that first little bit it's not even awkwardness. It's a difficult, might start off as a difficult conversation, but once the honesty starts coming out, assuming you can have that conversation with your manager and you know them a little bit better, it's the way to do it for sure. It worked out really well. I mean, today.
And some website mentioned about the mentorship. There's a mentorship I'm not sure for company culture. There's a mentorship there for company or directly for manager.
At Langan, we have a large mentoring program.
Oh, that's good. That's good.
We do, and it's all volunteer based. It's for every level. You can request, a new hire could request a partner at the firm to be their mentor, and we try to accommodate. I chaired that committee for a number of years, and I think people get a lot out of it. I actually still participate in it annually, so yeah, that's certainly one way to get to know people on a personal level, both at your level, above your level, and across the firm itself. So yeah, I think those are key programs.
Yeah, because some of the articles I'm reading right now, they specifically mentioned mentorship. And this mentorship is valid from this small group, one-to-one, and mentor and mentees. They could establish close the working relationship, and also for the neurodiversity employee, they can directly express their feeling, their opinions, so they have the intimate communication. Yeah, so.
Awesome. I wanted to also just bring up this a topic that is more related to actual physical changes or environmental things that neurodiverse employees might want to consider or have put in place that helps a lot of people. Do you have any tips or strategies, changes that you want to discuss? Anyone?
Well, there are certain workplace designs and settings that are not cubicles, not having an office space that you can close the rest of the world off to. There's a big shift in movement for co-working spaces and startups. And from my perspective, they're huge fails because there are more undiagnosed or diagnosed entrepreneurs with ADHD than there are without. So to put everybody in a box where everybody can hear and see everything that's going on it's overstimuli. So if that type of situation or setting isn't avoidable, then to make sure that the person has access to noise canceling headphones, they can listen to music or whatever that may be without being penalized or feeling like they're not doing their work. But I think it really is being open, honest, trying to figure out what the person's needs actually are, and then how do you best accommodate those needs? Because I mean, again, this is a spectrum, right? It's not going to be the same for every person. But I think over time you start to develop patterns that you can kind of put together to try and figure out how to best help people.
Yeah, and that's where the relationship with your manager or whoever it is really comes into play, where you tell them, I do really poor in this spot because of this and this. Is there any way I could possibly move or have noise canceling headphones or whatever it is? Maybe something on your desk that can help you just kind of stay focused on your desk, whatever it may be. And to Shawn's point too, coming from that exact same situation where we had an open floor plan when we first started, and now you can see we have cubicles / open floor plans, because some people thrived off of the open floor plan. They did. They loved the energy. They loved the constant commotion, and they did super well with all of that. But then others, if you go into our office, it's all the cubicle spaces and all the office spaces are very unique. We have a couple that have like ceilings on top of their cubicles or have a fourth wall to shut everyone out. Everything like that is just, yeah, it's finding adjustment and finding a company that is going to allow you those adjustments, because it's really at no cost to the company, basically. And it's super easy to implement for the most part. And it's just having people realize, like, oh, if we just do this, your production level or your productivity level is going to go up. Why wouldn't we want to do that? So then that's, again, the relationship with your manager is just so crucial, because they'll understand if you just say the noise, like, I need noise canceling headphones. I'm like, of course, we'll get those, kind of a thing. Or we won't be upset if you have headphones in while working or whatever it is.
Awesome.
Yeah, headphones are really crucial for me. If I don't have headphones on, it's like I can't get anything done. And I recently invested in some noise canceling ones, and it's been amazing.
I wanted to just invite everyone. We're wrapping it up here time-wise. We're coming to the end of our time. And if anyone, Jamie, Shawn, Julia, if you have any final words you wanted to share, or our guests, if you have any final questions that you wanted to get in there before we head out, now's the time.
Yeah, I guess I can start. One, just thank you for everyone for joining the call and participating as you have been. It's been fantastic. Look, I run an engineering firm, and we're always on the lookout for good people. We don't really have boxes, or we look for good people who are hard workers, and specialties in our field of engineering is, it's what we do on a daily basis. There seems to be significant overlap between neurodiversity and the services that we provide our clients. And we're doing our best now to become more aware of it and kind of included into our general culture. I think for those of you on the call who mentioned issues with anxiety and how would you approach an employer or a potential employer, I want to throw out there, if you guys can share my information, I'm happy to. I'm a fairly open person, and I like to think I'm fairly easy to talk to. Happy to be a resource for those out there who just want to run something by, like, hey, how would this work out? How should I position this, or what should or shouldn't I say? Feel free to reach out to me. And if you're looking for internships or anything else, we're always looking to hire folks. And like I said, I'm happy to be a resource to anybody who's part of this. So please forward my information around. You have my permission.
Thank you, Jamie.
So I think going off of also what Jamie said is there are companies that are looking out there for just talent, really good talent. And I know on our webpage we say, you don't see a job description that fits you, but you still think you'd be a good fit, like, please contact us, please reach out. That's also a really good thing to look for on websites when looking at jobs. Do they have a section here where, okay, maybe I don't fit the job description, but they still want talent? Then that's a good sign of a good culture, I would say, definitely. Yeah.
And I would just add to that the gifted people kind of coming out of the woodworks and self-identifying, and a lot of these people are CEOs of large companies, right? Everybody knows somebody with a disability. Statistically, it's impossible not to. So how do you connect with people in that way? So I think using your network is another good way, because we are developing this huge giant community of uniquely gifted individuals. So if you can identify a certain company where there is somebody else who shares a unique skill set, reach out to them. There's a good chance they want to help you. They just don't know that you need the help because you haven't asked yet.
Mm-hmm. it's a cool time period because we're breaking a lot of stigmas right now. We're educating, we're integrating, and we're creating awareness and acceptance, and it's a neat place to be.
And that's a great way to finish up. And thank you so much to Jamie, Shawn, Julia, for being with us today. This was a great discussion, and I'm going to share this with all the folks who registered, and hopefully it's helpful to all of our students out there. Thanks again. Bye, everyone.
Bye.
Bye. Thank you so much.